The sun was dying slowly over Burkina Faso, its last light painting the world in fire and dust. But for one man, the day was not done. President Ibrahim Traoré had spent the hours where others feared to go. The northern borderlands, where hunger and hope fought their silent war. He had met commanders, elders and tired mothers whose children waited by empty pots. Today, 2 blocked roads had finally opened. Trucks carrying grain had reached the hungry. And a new well, deep and pure, had begun to sing with water. Small victories, but for Ibrahim, each drop of progress meant 100 lives saved. Inside the convoy, the president sat quietly in the back seat, his uniform dusted with red earth. He wasn't reading speeches or signing papers. He was studying names, handwritten lists of villages, families, numbers. Each word represented a human heartbeat. He turned to his aide. "Double the grain for Koska and Tau," Ibrahim said calmly, "and send 2 nurses with the next convoy. Hunger and fever together can destroy a village faster than war." "Yes, sir," the aide replied, already jotting down the command. The city of Ouagadougou soon rose before them, its streets alive with motion, vendors calling out in rhythm, radios whispering songs of struggle, motorcycles weaving like restless spirits through the evening crowd. And yet, amid all this life, something caught his eye. Under the shadow of a neem tree, a barefoot woman stood, her belly swollen with life, her eyes hollow with hunger. In one trembling hand, she held a bowl of coins, and in the other, her hope. People passed her like she was invisible, a ghost of poverty no one dared to touch. Ibrahim's voice cut through the convoy's hum. "Stop the car." The driver hesitated. "Sir, this area isn't—" I said stop. The brakes sighed. Engines fell silent. Guards stepped out, forming a tight circle. The crowd began to murmur, eyes widening as they recognized the man stepping out of the car. "Is that him?" someone whispered. "The president?" But Ibrahim ignored them. He walked straight toward the woman and, instead of towering above her, sat down beside her, on the rough curb in the dust. Where the people could see, the market went silent. "My sister," Ibrahim said softly. "Why are you here? Are you with child?" The woman's lips trembled. Tears welled in her tired eyes. 6 months, she whispered. I have nothing to eat. I stand here until my legs give up. People pass me as if I don't exist. What is your name?" Ibrahim asked gently. "Mariam," she said, voice breaking. "I didn't come to beg. I only want this child to live." Ibrahim looked at her, not with pity, but with quiet respect. Then he glanced at the small bowl of coins in her hand. He saw not money, but proof of her endurance. "Come with me," he said. "You will eat tonight?" But Mariam shook her head, ashamed. "No, sir. People will laugh. They'll say I used pity to climb into your car." Ibrahim smiled faintly. "You bring no shame, Mariam. You bring truth, and I am not taking you to a palace. I'm taking you to a table." For a long moment, she searched his face, trying to see if there was a trick, a camera, a promise that would vanish by morning. But she saw only sincerity. Finally, she nodded. A guard helped her into the car. As the convoy began to move again, Ibrahim looked once more at the empty tree, where a woman had stood forgotten by her own people. He felt something shift inside him. His fatigue melted into a quiet fire. The kind of purpose that no crown can give and no army can enforce. In the front seat, his aide leaned closer and whispered, "Sir, we could send someone later. This isn't safe." Ibrahim turned his head slightly, eyes steady. "If it isn't safe for a pregnant woman to stand in the street," he said, "then it isn't safe for me to drive past her with my windows closed." The aide said nothing. More, the silence inside the car was heavier than words. They didn't go to the grand hall with chandeliers and marble. Instead, Ibrahim led Mariam to a small dining room, a quiet place with a simple wooden table and a window that opened to the fading sky. No cameras. No advisors. No ceremony. A steward entered with bowls of rice, vegetables, and warm bread. But before he could serve, Ibrahim waved him away. He sat down across from Mariam. "Eat," he said gently. Mariam hesitated, tears gathering again. It feels wrong, she whispered, like I've stepped into someone else's dream. This is not a dream, Ibrahim replied. This is your seat. Hunger does not respect titles, Mariam, but neither does compassion. She stared at him, then slowly reached for a piece of bread. The first bite came with trembling hands, and the second, with relief. Color returned to her cheeks, her shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in months, she smiled. A fragile smile that could break the heart of the hardest man. Ibrahim watched her quietly. "What is your story?" he asked softly. Mariam lowered her gaze. "When I found out I was pregnant," she began, "my husband, Yakuba, laughed so loud the neighbors thought we'd won the lottery. He said, 'If it's a boy, I'll teach him to ride a bicycle the day he can stand.'" She paused, eyes shining with memory, and I teased him, "And if it's a girl?" He said, "Then I'll buy her 2 bicycles." A small laugh escaped her, but it faded quickly. Her voice broke as she continued. "One morning, he left early. A truck had broken down, so he took another road. There was an accident. At the hospital, the nurse said we needed money for a scan." Her words trailed off, swallowed by silence. Some stories pierce deeper than bullets. In that moment, the president of a nation saw not just one woman, but thousands like her, standing under different trees, waiting for a kind eye to see them. And as the city lights blinked alive outside, Ibrahim Traoré made a silent vow that no mother of his land would be left unseen again. But Mariam's story was not over. That night, something would happen, something that would test Ibrahim's heart and the strength of his promise. When the nurse asked for money, we ran out to borrow some, but when we returned, her voice broke. It was too late. She lifted her cup with shaking hands. With Yakuba's small job, at least we ate. But after he died, the landlord came knocking. Friends helped until they couldn't anymore. And when there was no one left, I stood on that corner. Not because I wanted pity, but because I wanted this child to live. Some truths carry the weight of an entire nation. And in that small dining room, the story of one woman became the mirror of 1,000 others. Abandoned by systems, silenced by hunger, Ibrahim leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "Mariam," he said quietly, "I am sorry. Sorry for the broken road. Sorry for the hospital that asked for coins before compassion. Sorry for the silence that followed." Mariam covered her face, tears spilling through her fingers. "People tell me, be strong," she whispered. "But strength costs money." Ibrahim nodded slowly. His voice turned firm, the voice of a man used to giving orders that must not be ignored. "You will not beg again," he said. "That is my promise, not for the cameras. For you," she looked up, doubtful, fragile. "People promise when cameras are on," she said. "Then they disappear." Ibrahim placed his hand on his chest. "The only camera today is right here," he said softly. "And it follows me everywhere." He signals for tea. Steam curls between them, turning the silence into something warmer. "Ibrahim, tell me, Mariam, if tomorrow you could work and with dignity, what would you choose?" Mariam, confused. "Work? You mean a job?" Ibrahim, "Yes, not survival. Work. Your dream." Mariam blinked in disbelief. "Since I was a girl, I loved flowers. I learned their names from a neighbor. Hibiscus, bougainvillea, yasmin. I used to dream of having my own flower shop." She gave a shy laugh. "But dreams are too expensive for the poor." Ibrahim smiled, not the smile of a politician, but of a believer. "Dreams should not be a luxury," he said. "They should be a right. Eat your bread, Mariam. Tomorrow we'll walk a street filled with empty shutters. You'll choose one." She stared at him, half hopeful, half afraid. "If this is a joke," she whispered, "let it be a kind one." "It is not a joke," Ibrahim said gently. "It's a beginning." He picks up the phone. "Find small shop near the market," he tells his chief of staff. "Ask the florist by the mosque if she'll teach someone for a month, and hire a doctor, one who'll visit a pregnant mother every week without fail." There's hesitation on the other end. "Sir, there will be talk." "The media." "Then let them talk," Ibrahim interrupts. "I'm not doing this for a headline. I'm doing it for a child." Cut to montage, morning light, hammers tapping, paintbrushes sweeping. A humble little shop takes shape. White walls, wooden shelves. The smell of fresh paint and earth. By week's end, a sign appears above the door, hand-painted in careful letters. Mariam's Garden, Flowers of Hope. Mariam stands frozen at the doorway. Her hands covering her face, she can hardly breathe. Behind her, an old woman with laughing eyes, Auntie Rukia, the florist from the mosque, walks in carrying buckets of flowers. "I hear you're stealing my customers," Rukia teases. Pinching Mariam's arm. Good, this city needs more color. Later that day, Ibrahim arrives quietly without a convoy. No flags. No security. He walks in like an ordinary man. His boots still dusty from the road. He picks up the first bouquet, roses and mint, and places a few bills in the tin box. "Business begins with hope," he says, smiling at a young boy who stares at his uniform in awe. On the back wall, in neat handwriting, a promise is painted. "We sell flowers. Not dignity, no bribes, no shame, no debt." For days, joy fills the little shop. Women come to buy garlands for weddings. A teacher buys 2 pots of jasmine for her classroom. A taxi driver grins as he picks a single rose. "My wife says I have no romance," he chuckles. Let's prove her wrong. The shop begins to bloom. But in a world like this, hope always attracts shadows. "Nice shop you've got," he says, tapping his fingers. "This lane has rules. Pay the safety fee, and nothing bad happens." Mariam's throat goes dry. "I have no safety fee," she says quietly. "I have a baby and a business." He chuckles darkly. "Everyone pays." Before Mariam can speak, Auntie Rukia steps forward, eyes fierce. She pays her taxes like anyone else. "She will not pay you." The man's grin hardens. "We'll see." He leaves. Moments later, the electricity cuts out. The fridge hums to silence. Flowers begin to wilt. By evening, rumors flood social media. Palace pet given free shop while people starve. A blogger mocks her as a charity showpiece. Government clerk suddenly finds her permit. Missing a stamp, the stamp now 5. Times more expensive. In the back room, Mariam breaks down, tears soaking her sleeves. "Maybe I should close," she whispers. Auntie Rukia takes her hands gently. "You've worked harder in a week than some men do in a year. Trouble found you before, and you didn't give up. Don't start now." Dr. Salif enters quietly for his weekly check. He finds Mariam wiping tears behind a crate. He listens to her belly, nods, and says kindly, "Your blood pressure's a little high. Drink more water. Rest when you can. And when trouble knocks again, call this number." He presses a small card into her hand. That night, as the city sleeps, a man in plain clothes enters the shop. It's Ibrahim, no guards, no cameras. Just a quiet resolve. He buys a small plant, looks around and asks, "How was your day?" Mariam hesitates, then tells him everything, the threats, the rumors, the missing permit. She expects anger, maybe disappointment, but Ibrahim stays calm, his eyes burning with steady fire. "Tomorrow," he says, "2 things will happen. First, we file a police complaint quietly. No noise, no cameras. Second, we launch something new, a pilot program. If a shop faces extortion, we send a lawyer for free. If a permit gets stuck, we unstick it. If a rumor spreads, we answer with truth." He pauses. "This isn't charity, Mariam. This is what government should be." She wipes her tears, manages a small smile. "And if they laugh at us?" she asks. "Let them laugh," Ibrahim says softly. His eyes warm but tired. "We'll be too busy selling flowers." Mariam stares, frozen, shame and fear gripping her heart. But within an hour, 3 women from the neighborhood arrive. They stand shoulder to shoulder in front of the shop, arms crossed, guarding the door. By noon, a university student posts a short video. "I bought a plant today," he says. "The owner used to beg in the sun. Now she pays taxes and even hired her cousin. This is the kind of politics I want." The video spreads like wildfire. By evening, hundreds have shared it. And the man in the leather jacket? He never comes back. Sometimes revolutions begin not with bullets or speeches, but with a single seed planted in honest soil. But peace is never left alone for long. When power changes the streets, The old powers return, angrier, louder, and more dangerous than before. The room was quiet after the broadcast. The ledger lay open beside Ibrahim's hand. Numbers on a page, but behind every number, a life. Outside, dawn crept over Ouagadougou, turning the rooftops gold. The muezzin's call blended with the hum of morning markets waking up. He looked out the window, eyes tracing the city. Once this same city had felt like a weight on his shoulders. Now it felt like a promise whispering back. Across town, Mariam arranged lilies in a glass jar. Her shop had grown busier, filled with color, laughter, and the scent of life. A small wooden board still hung on the wall. "We sell flowers, not dignity." Beneath it, her baby slept in a basket of woven straw, the same kind her husband once carried tools in. Sometimes, when customers left, she'd glance at the street corner where she once begged. She no longer looked at it with shame, only gratitude. That corner was where hope had found her. In the palace, Ibrahim met his ministers again. On the wall behind him was no longer a map of borders, but a map of names. Villages, families, projects, every dot a story. "Power," he said quietly, "is not the right to command. It's the duty to repair." There was silence in the room, the kind that follows truth. He turned to his cabinet. "Every Friday I want a report not of what we spent but of who we lifted." The months ahead were not easy. Corruption fought back harder, wearing new faces. A new crisis brewed at the borders. Smuggling, drought, whispers of rebellion. Advisors urged caution. Some suggested stepping back from the Dignity Initiative. But Ibrahim refused. "The world will not remember our excuses," he said. "It will remember our courage." He traveled again, not in motorcades but in worn trucks, dust on his boots, sitting among farmers and teachers, eating from their pots. Listening more than speaking, one evening, cameras caught him standing beside an old bridge under repair, the same road where Yakuba had once died. "This," he told the workers, "is not just a bridge of stone. It is an apology built into the earth." The clip spread across the country like fire. Children in schools began drawing flowers on blackboards and writing beneath them. "Hope grows here." A reporter once asked Mariam, "Do you think the president changed your life?" She smiled. "He didn't give me change. He gave me a chance." Weeks later, at a national ceremony, Ibrahim stood before a hall filled with farmers, teachers, widows, and students. Behind him, a banner read, "Dignity is our nation's wealth." He didn't read from paper. He spoke from memory, like he always did. "Our strength is not measured in gold or oil," he said. Voice steady, eyes clear. "It is measured in the hands that work, in the hearts that refuse to bow, in the women who rise again after loss." Miriam's flowers, the mechanic's grease, the teacher's chalk. These are our real treasures. We were born poor in things but rich in courage. And courage, when shared, becomes a nation. The audience stood, not out of protocol, but pride. That night, as he drove home through the quiet streets, he passed Mayam's garden. The lights inside were soft and warm. Through the window he saw her laughing with 2 new apprentices. Her baby asleep in her arms. He didn't stop. He didn't need to. Some moments are not meant to be interrupted, only remembered. At a red light he looked up at the stars. The same stars that had watched over every struggle, every promise, every prayer whispered by the poor. For the first time in a long while he felt peace. Not the peace of silence, but the peace of purpose. He thought of the words he had written months ago on a hospital wall. "We sell flowers, not dignity," and he whispered to himself. "And we build nations, not empires." Months passed. Seasons changed. Burkina Faso began to breathe differently. Markets once filled with noise now carried laughter. Hospitals once feared had become places of trust. And on the walls of schools, children painted flowers beside their alphabets. A for apple. For flower, D for dignity. But change never walks alone. It always drags resistance beside it. In the capital, whispers grew louder. Old elites, losing their comfort, called meetings in private rooms. "He is turning the people into an army," one said. "He forgets that politics is about power, not poetry," another smirked. But Ibrahim knew. Every reform invites a storm, and he was not afraid of thunder. He gathered his closest advisors one evening under a dim lamp. The same table where the Dignity Initiative had first been drawn now held a pile of reports. Some good. New schools opened. Births recorded safely, some grim at threats. Corruption still clinging like smoke. He looked up and said quietly, "We cannot fix everything in one term, but we can fix the way we try." Then, in a pause that felt like prayer, he added, "If we lose power doing what's right, then power was never ours to keep." Outside, rain began to fall, slow, rhythmic, like the sound of cleansing. A month later, Ibrahim visited a small village near Bobo Dioulasso. No cameras. Stage, only a circle of villagers under a baobab tree. A little girl ran forward, holding a flower wrapped in paper. "Mama says you helped her," she said shyly. He knelt to her height. "And what do you want to be when you grow up?" She smiled, missing 2 teeth. "A doctor, but not the kind who asks for money." The people laughed softly, and Ibrahim smiled, a smile that carried both pride and ache. One elder stood. "You gave us help," he said, "but now we must learn to give help to others. That is the real independence." Ibrahim nodded. "Yes, a country is not free when its president stands strong. It is free when its people do." The elder reached into a clay pot, took a handful of seeds, and handed them to him. "Then plant these, son. Let them remind you, even the tallest tree begins in the dark." Weeks later, a crisis hit. Flash floods swept through the northern provinces, homes washed away, roads broken. Some called it a curse. Others called it politics. Ibrahim didn't wait for reports. He left his desk, took a jeep, and drove through the rain himself. When he arrived, he didn't find despair. He found villagers forming human chains to save children from the current. A woman shouted, "We need tents." Ibrahim tore the plastic covers off the supply trucks himself. "Then take mine first," he said, handing his own cover to shield an infant. That night, under a leaking shelter, he sat beside soaked citizens, sharing bowls of millet and stories. No cameras, just a president among his people. And when the rain finally stopped, he told them, "The storm came to test us. But look, we stood together. That means the storm lost." The years rolled forward like a river after the storm. Burkina Faso began to glow in quiet ways. Not in marble towers or luxury cars, but in clean water, open schools, and full hands everywhere Ibrahim Traoré had once walked. Something had begun to take root. Not monuments, but movements. Farmers who once begged for rain now built cooperatives. Teachers who once borrowed chalk now printed their own books. And children who once whispered prayers for food now spoke of building hospitals, planting trees, and becoming nurses. But as the country rose, Ibrahim grew older. His beard carried silver, his voice carried patience, and his heart carried both victory and exhaustion. One night, he returned to the same neem tree where he had once found Mariam, barefoot, desperate, invisible. Now, under that same tree, there stood a crowd of vendors, each one running small shops, food stalls, and flower stands. The air was alive with sound, laughter, music, color. A little boy ran up to him carrying a rose. "From Mama Mariam," he shouted. Ibrahim took it with a smile. He looked around, at the lights, the people, the hope, and whispered to himself. Later that night, Ibrahim sat at his desk, the same desk where the Dignity Initiative was first written. He opened a blank page and began to write, "To whoever leads after me, you will inherit more than a chair. You will inherit a heartbeat, a nation's trust. Guard it with humility, not with fear. Do not speak louder than the people. Listen longer, because leadership is not a crown, it's a call." He paused, then added one final line. "If ever you feel alone, go to the streets, sit beside the hungry, and you will find me there." He folded the letter and placed it in a small box labeled, "For Tomorrow." Maybe this is what power was always meant to do, disappear into the people. The next morning, newspapers carried a photo, not of power, but of humanity. The president, wet and muddy, holding a child against his chest. The headline read, "Leadership is not luxury, it is love." The years rolled forward like a river after the storm. Burkina Faso began to glow in quiet ways. Not in marble towers or luxury cars, but in clean water, open schools, and full hands everywhere Ibrahim Traoré had once walked. Something had begun to take root, not monuments, but movements,